Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo. Her name has been coming up a lot right now that Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested. But will Combs' ex-girlfriend play a role in his criminal case? We're going to revisit their history, the connections, and more with former prosecutor Eva Sullivan. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. This episode is sponsored by Simply Safe. There is no safe like Simply Safe. When it comes to the arrest and indictment of Sean Diddy Combs on federal racketeering and sex trafficking charges, the discussion, as you can imagine, has moved on to celebrities, right? If the allegations are true, who knew what? Who is being interviewed by the feds? Could any of these high-profile people face criminal charges of their own? Those are fair questions because, after all, Combs is accused of controlling a criminal enterprise that was engaged in the abuse of women, sex trafficking, forced labor, prostitution, the distribution of drugs, an organization that committed crimes like kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice to carry out their goals. So you have to imagine there were people who were part of this and witnessed this. In fact, the government said that they interviewed over 50 witnesses and victims. But there is one name on that celebrity list that is standing out in particular right now. Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo. Why? Well, long before Combs was criminally charged, long before he was hit with multiple lawsuits accusing him of sexual assault, he dated the famous pop star and actress, reportedly from 1999 to 2001. Their first public appearance was September 1999 at the MTV Music Awards, and the following year, when they were together, was where she wore that infamous Versace green dress at the Grammys. The couple were on red carpets together. They went to Combs' famous white party together. Big A-list couple. In fact, there is a photo of them together lying in a white bed with giant pillows. And in another photo, they're in that same bed with other people. And one clip that has actually surfaced recently is of the couple in the show MTV Diaries from 2000. And this is where Combs expressed his dissatisfaction with Lopez having to perform a kiss scene in one of her movies. And she confessed he has a problem with stuff like that. So it was a little odd, but something else interesting happened. You fast forward to 2015, they'd already broken up. And this is when Jennifer Lopez appeared on the Wendy Williams show back in 2015.
I was telling you that I could always see you getting back with Puffy in a little way.
I remember you said
yes.
that. Yes.
Or in my mind.
Look at that. Look at.
Or in my mind, getting together permanently with
First of
Pitbull.
all, right, Pitbull. It's crazy. Everybody came alive. They all had something to say.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion.
Yes, it's funny to me.
And then the cameras panned over to Lopez's mom, Guadalupe Lupe Rodriguez, who was in the audience, who has this kind of concerned look on her face, and she seems to mouth, "It's done." Okay. Now, we can't forget that Lopez and Combs' relationship was marked by one of the biggest controversies of his life. The infamous 1999 shooting outside of a New York City nightclub after an argument broke out that left 3 people injured. Lopez, Combs, and Combs' bodyguard, Anthony Jones, they were actually pursued by police after leaving the scene and were arrested. Stolen gun was found in the car. Lopez was detained for, I believe, 12 hours, but the charges were never pursued against her. Combs, though, Jones, and a man named Shine Barrow, who was a former Bad Boy rapper who was also there that night, they were arrested. They went on trial. Combs was accused of opening fire and then trying to bribe the driver of the car to take the fall for having the gun. Jones and Combs, they were acquitted of gun possession and bribery charges, but Barrow was convicted of assault and reckless endangerment for the shooting, and he was sentenced to 10 years in jail. In fact, Barrow has recently stated that Combs sent him to prison. Yeah, blamed him, said that he called witnesses to testify against him. And by the way, Lopez never showed up to the courthouse. She was named as a potential witness, but never ended up being called to testify. The pair ended up breaking up. And what's interesting about that is that Lopez and this shooting was referenced recently in one of the civil lawsuits that was filed against Sean Combs. This one is the sexual assault and sex trafficking lawsuit filed by Rodney Little Rod Jones. This is Combs' former producer. And Jones claimed that Combs showed off his guns to him at one point and bragged about shooting people, and that he confessed He was, in fact, responsible for that 1999 shooting outside of the nightclub. And he claimed that Combs told him that Lopez carried the gun into the club for him and passed the gun to him when he got into that altercation and the shots were fired. Jones claims that Combs forced his then artist Shine to be the fall guy, taking the blame for the shooting. And now all of that brings us to Lopez today. After these charges against Combs, what role could she play? To be clear, she's not listed. She's not mentioned in the indictment in any way or any of the government's letters from the prosecution to the judge where it was regarding bail. His bail has been denied twice, by the way. But there's been no reference, actually, in filings from the government about Jennifer Lopez. And she has not spoken out since the arrest of Sean Combs. But I want to talk about this. And for that, I want to bring on former prosecutor Eva Sullivan to talk more about this. Eva, thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let me first ask you the main question I ask everybody in the past week. Your thoughts on the arrest and indictment of Sean Combs.
How the mighty have fallen. It is unbelievable. I remember when I was in high school, Sean Pitty Combs was like the guy everybody wanted to be. And I mean, kids emulated him. And to see now that he's charged with such egregious charges, trafficking, and everything else, it's completely unbelievable.
Was there anything in the indictment that surprised you? Was there anything missing from the indictment that you expected to see in it?
One of the things that surprised me is when you read the first line, it says that his activity has been going on for decades. Yeah. But then the charges are from 2008 to 2023, 2024. So it seems that it's been going on for a long time. This is a long time coming that he's been engaging in the activity, but perhaps the prosecutors only have enough evidence for 2008 to 2023 period of time.
That's so interesting. And I want to talk about J-Lo for a second because, you know, first let me ask you this question. As we're talking about celebrities and we're talking about Jennifer Lopez, so many people who were affiliated with him, who went to his parties, who had this connection, they haven't issued statements like this is abhorrent, I condemn all of this, I didn't know about anything. You're seeing it a little bit, but not on a grand scale. I remember when Harvey Weinstein was criminally charged, or even when those accusations came out from the New York Times piece. There were people who celebrities came forward and said, I remember his party. You know, I remember talking to him. He always said these things. You heard rumblings of it. You're hearing that much less now with Sean Combs. And the question I keep getting asked is, why? Why are you not hearing more from celebrities? Why are they staying silent? Why do you think that is?
I think there's a big difference between P. Diddy's situation and Weinstein. And Weinstein, a lot of the women came forward and talked about the fact that they were victims or he inappropriately, made advances to them. But here, if you're attending P. Diddy's parties, I think Ashton Kutcher in one feed was saying, yeah, his parties. Oh, let me tell you about them. Let me think about them. They're wild. Guilty by association. Nobody wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole if you're a celebrity.
And to be clear, not guilty in a court of law, like
no,
because you
can
go to a party and not commit a crime.
Right.
You just were around it. And the question was it an open secret?
But you're guilty by association
right.
in the court of public opinion,
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
If it comes out that you were attending his parties, everyone's naturally going to think, what were you doing at that party? What was your involvement? Were you involved in the freak-offs? Did you engage in it? It would be a PR nightmare.
By the way, we cover a lot of stories here on Sidebar where we raise the issue of personal safety, security, and honestly, having the right home surveillance system, that can be so important. And it's fall. Families, they're returning to work, school, there's tons of outdoor fall activities. Homes are being left empty during the day, and it is so important to consider the heightened risk of burglaries that occur in the fall. But here's the good news. Simply Safe is now a proud sponsor of Sidebar and is offering a solution to keep your home secure. Look, I live in an area where there have been break-ins. People's cars are getting stolen right from the driveway. I also live near older people too, which makes it, kind of more scary. So having a security system that you can trust to protect your loved ones is huge. And Simply Safe has advanced sensors and cameras that detect threats from break-ins to fires to floods, so much more. With Simply Safe, you also get 24/7 professional monitoring, which includes Simply Safe agents that are ready to spring into into action to keep you safe. They promptly assess the situation, they contact you, they dispatch first responders to your address, even if you're away or maybe you can't respond. And with Fast Protect monitoring and LiveGuard protection, SimpliSafe agents can act within 5 seconds of receiving your alarm. Also, super easy to install, by the way. I set it up, doorbell, porch, watch different camera angles on my phone, able to activate it in no time. So if you're now thinking, okay, there has to be a catch, has to be super expensive, right? You would be wrong, because you will never be locked into a long-term contract. You can cancel at any time. Pricing is transparent. It's affordable. It starts at less than $1 a day. There are no hidden fees ever. So right now you can save 50% on your system, plus a free indoor security camera, and your first month is free when you sign up for core monitoring. So visit simplysafe.com/sidebar to customize yours. That's simplysafe.com/sidebar. There is no safe like SimpliSafe. I do wonder, because the government said that they've spoken with over 50 witnesses and victims as of right now. That number could potentially grow because they say this investigation's ongoing, and I'm sure you can agree that when there is an indictment, sometimes more people come forward and will cooperate with the government. Maybe they feel that they're concerned about charges coming. Do you think that those conversations are happening behind the scenes? Do you think celebrities right now, through their legal teams, are meeting with prosecutors and giving information?
Absolutely. This P. Diddy's conduct was going on for decades, over 10 years, we know for sure. So it's very likely that the prosecutors are meeting with people, building their case, and it may be the situation where the prosecutors actually don't want celebrities to reveal any information, because it could be a situation where in court, it really tanks your case. If, let's say, hypothetically, you had Ashton Kutcher or someone say, yeah, I was attending the freak-offs during these period of times. This is the conduct I observed. He makes that statement in the media. Then when prosecutors are preparing for that case, well, the defense has great cannon fodder for cross-examination.
Right.
Let's say Ashton Kutcher makes that statement a year before the case goes. The defense now has a year to think about how they're going to cross-examine that witness.
Fair.
And that could make the case a lot worse for the government.
Or if he says something in the media that's contradicted by something that he said at another time. The question I would have is, celebrities are very private, obviously. Is there a situation where the government maybe got information from high-profile celebrities, but they will not reveal during the course of this investigation or even at a trial that they got that information from celebrity A or celebrity B? Like, in other words, they can get information from witnesses, but they don't necessarily have to call them as witnesses at a trial. They can use that information to find further evidence, right? So there's a chance, correct me if I'm wrong, that they may have spoken with celebrities, but we'll never know that those conversations happened.
Absolutely. Like, if you look at the indictment itself, it's 14 pages. But what we don't see is there could be all the videotapes, any cell phone records, countless documents that they looked at in order to put together those 14 pages, as well as countless witness interviews. There's always a mountain of evidence in order to get to that point where you have an indictment.
I want to ask you something as a former prosecutor. If you wanted to interview Jennifer Lopez, how do you do it without anybody knowing? There's paparazzi all the time. You call her into your office, people are going to be seeing it, especially now. Everybody knows what I would imagine. There's cameras set up outside the U.S. Attorney's office. You go to her house, why are agents showing up to her house? How do you get information from a celebrity like this?
We're talking about the SDNY here. It's a high-profile prosecutor's office that is used to dealing with politicians, celebrities. They have mechanisms and things in place, I'm sure, to be able to interview J-Lo without the paparazzi and anybody knowing. I mean, you could probably get her in a blacked out car, take her, whether it's a loading dock or some designated area where people would not suspect a celebrity would drive into, have your agents meet her, take her up into a secret room, and have a conversation with her.
By the way, what information do you think, and I kind of laid out the history, what information could Jennifer Lopez provide to the government that would be useful in their case?
Everything. Like, we know that J-Lo was dating P. Diddy in the late 1990s to 2001, right? We know about the gun incident with the club. What I would want to know if I was a prosecutor sitting down with J-Lo is, when did your relationship start? What did you observe? You were with him for 18 months. You shared a bed with him. You must have seen things. What did you see? And I would want to see if I could get information that would put his activities back to 1999 and then bring it forward, which could make my case twice as strong as it currently is today.
If you're prosecuting this case, do you want it to be a celebrity trial? Do you want all these big names to take the stand to explain what happened with Sean Combs? Is that advantageous to you?
What I'd want is justice for the victims. What I'd want is to know that sex traffickers are caught and that sex workers have a safe place.
But I guess the concern would be, if you have so many celebrities, it turns into kind of a spectacle, and that could be bad for a jury, right? I don't know. I mean, is that, in a way, it becomes an interesting back and forth to have a Jennifer Lopez take the stand, and maybe have an Ashton Kutcher take the stand, to have a Cat Williams take the stand. I mean, there's so many people who've been speaking out or some affiliated with it. I just don't know if that would be problematic for a prosecutor.
I think you would have to do a really good job having conversations with the jury, letting them know, yes, this person is a celebrity, but we have to look past their public status into the activities that Sean P. Diddy Combs, it's a mouthful, was engaging in.
If she were in trouble, right, if she were allegedly part of these freak-off sessions or was part of the gun incident in 1999, by the way, before I even get to that, the 1999 shooting wasn't referenced in this indictment. Is there any way that could be brought into a federal case like this? Because, you know, the racketeering charge lists so many underlying crimes that he's not specifically charged with, but it's evidence to show there is this criminal enterprise. Could they bring that 1999 shooting that he was acquitted of into this federal case, or no?
Yeah, you could definitely have it in conversations to show the activity that he was engaging in and how far back it went.
The reason I ask is because, you know, there's been reporting that, J-Lo has to be concerned now, you know, what does she know? If she were actually in legal trouble, do you think she would have already been indicted? I guess the question is, if the government wanted to indict other people, wouldn't they have done it already with Sean Combs, or would they want to indict Sean Combs first and then indict other people?
Typically, when you have a RICO charge, there are two paths you could take. One path is you try to get all the people lower down in the rungs of the organization, get charges against them as a way of hopefully getting them to flip on the leader and then getting the leader, or you're going to charge everyone at once. So here, they got P. Diddy, right? He was the first one, the leader, which is very unusual. And the fact that they did that tells me they probably don't have information to indict J-Lo, otherwise they would have done it. The more likely scenario is that she may fit into the same camp as Cassie and be a victim.
Right. See, the question is, because, you know, it was like, well, he was indicted. Now they're saying it's an ongoing investigation. Everybody's going to come forward because they're worried about getting indicted too. I think that was a purposeful statement from Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, to say this investigation's ongoing. You know, basically saying we're not taking anything off the table. Do you think that was a calling card? If you have information, you come to us before we come to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's a lot of celebrities running scared right now.
And there's a difference between attending a party and just, you know, seeing something and somehow being a part of this. And I think that's a clear distinction. If you were representing Jennifer Lopez at this moment, would you advise her to not say anything about what's going on, even if she's not a part of the case, even if she's not spoken to prosecutors, even if there's no intention that they speak to her? Would you tell her, avoid this like the plague, do not put out a statement? If you're asked about Sean Combs, avoid the question. What would you advise her as her legal counsel?
I would advise her to speak with the SDNY. I would say, if
you
had any information, talk to them and provide it to them, because the most important thing is justice for the people that were wronged in the situation. And then I would say, follow their lead. And the prosecutors at the SDNY may tell her, look, we don't want you to make any statements in the media at all about anything you observed, what happened with P. Diddy, your relationship, because again, that would be cannon fodder for cross-examination. Stay away from that. And when we go to trial, make your statement on the stand.
look, this federal case is so secret, right? It was a grand jury. Those are secret. We didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. The chances that we find out right now to when a trial would happen, maybe in a year, year and a half, 2 years, who might be working with the government, who spoke to the government, whether or not Jennifer Lopez is a part of this case at all. When would we ever know that? When do you think the earliest would be we would have any idea about that?
We may never know that.
Right.
Just depending on how this case unfolds and what the prosecution's strategy is.
Yeah, and look, she, to be clear, is not named in this. She has not been charged with anything. This is purely speculation at this point. But given the arrest of such a high-profile individual, it is natural to have the conversation about what other people who were around him or dated him or knew him might somehow be a part of this. Because we did another episode where all of these videos of Combs talking about his parties and being asked about his parties, it was like an open secret about it. And so I think that's a fair question, right? Yeah.
I think it's absolutely a fair question. The other question that I have that comes to mind is, what was their involvement with P. Diddy? Because it's different than a situation where you say you just attended a party, that was it.
Right.
We have photographs we see in the public domain that some of these people were business partners with P. Diddy, had like friendships with him that span decades.
Yeah.
That's a lot different than just attending a party.
Yeah, that's true. And they could be subpoenaing, I have such trouble with that word, issuing a subpoena, issuing a subpoena for their electronic devices as well, right? If text message conversations, videos of these celebrities at these parties. But then again, like you said, like we had said before, he collected their cell phones a lot of times, so people couldn't document what was going on. Look, it's an interesting side note of this. We'll see which way it progresses. Eva Sullivan, thank you so much for coming on, making your Sidebar debut. Hope you enjoyed it. Really enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.